Okay, we're live now. I want to welcome everybody, and we've got 5 people with us already. I wonder how that happens when you immediately. Anyway, welcome everybody to the Fighting Fathers Forum, and our topic tonight is Free Julian Assange Now. We've been saying now for quite a long time now, but come on, now is the time. And privileged to have with me tonight, my good friend John, who's in the opposite corner from me there, who's, of course, is Julian's dad. I've got Adriana right below me, and my dear mate Con at the other side. Good to have you with us, guys. Other people, feel free to introduce yourselves from way up FNQ. I don't know what FNQ was.
Hi.
Where's Alison from? Where's FNQ? Far North Queensland, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Alison's a long-term friend.
Okay, lovely. Okay, numbers are growing here. We've got Victoria and Patrick from Adelaide are with us.
Yes.
Well, both, good to have you.
Hi, Victoria. Hi, Patrick. Another long-term friend.
Yeah.
Phil is here. Phil from Tassie.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Mark Batterson is with us. Mark from New South Wales, UK. Mark being the current president of Friends of Sabille, Australia. Has been on here before talking about the situation in Palestine at the moment, which looks like very dire. Hi, guys from Kylie from Melbourne.
Hi, Kylie.
Hi.
Alison from Townsville.
Hi.
What's that symbol mean, John? It's that code?
+3, I guess.
I think it's a smile.
It's a smile, is it?
Oh, no.
I think so.
Okay. Danielle from Sydney is with us. Hi, lovely ones.
Hi, Danny. Hi, Danny.
I'm not sure I'd normally come under the category of lovely ones. Karen is with us. Karen being one of the great free Assange activists in the city. She was another one who's just missed out on being part of our panel tonight. But wonderful woman. Joy is here from down the corridor. Well, she's down the corridor from where I broadcast.
Oh, I see. It's Joy.
All right. Now, look, the format I'm going to try and work with tonight is give each of you guys 10 minutes to give a bit of input on where we're up to with Julian. John, maybe from a personal angle, Adriana from a legal angle, and Con from a more political angle, if that makes sense. And that, I think, is the areas of expertise for each of you. We'll do that, but we'll give you a breather first by playing a song from John Quirple. Now, I didn't even... John Quirple's an old friend of mine. I went to university with him, actually.
I see.
John was doing his theology studies at Sydney Uni when I was doing my arts degree. And he's written a song called Collateral Murder. We'll bring it up and play that, and then we'll pass to John. Pass to the other John. This John, similar to me, I think, was Uniting Church minister in Bondi Beach. It was for a lot of years. Similar story to my own. Squeezed out in the end under unhappy circumstances. Look, I won't say more about that now. Let's pass to John. Hope this works.
And the man in uniform blandly saying, as sad as it is, it's a fact of war, collateral damage, sweet child playing, sweet child playing, crying, dying, victim of madness and chance. Morning was quiet, there was naught in the air to tell of the afternoon despair. When the silence was cracked by a thunderous roar, a shrapnel fire of phosphoric rain, sudden all around filled with agonized screams of desperate searching by frantic half means. Hope against hope, extinguished dreams, anger and rage mingled with vengeance demand. And the men in uniform blandly saying, always blandly saying, that sad as it is, it's a fact of war, just collateral damage. Sweet child playing, sweet child laying, crying, dying, victim of madness and chance, now gone.
Oops.
Oops.
Sorry, got that right now. Thank you, John, for that. And thank you, John Purple, rather. And now I'm going to pass to the other John. How do I do that? I bring him in here like this. There we go.
Oh, good.
You're on, my friend.
Okay. Well, as it's sort of Christmas, and I guess one would want to review the year and get an understanding of what we've done and where we've come from that year. So at the beginning of the year, Gabriel and I went to the United States with the film Ithaca, where we did 60 events in 42 cities, plus 9 universities in 47 days. Pretty demanding. And then later on in the year, a delegation went from Australia, a delegation of parliamentarians, 6 of them, went to Washington, where they met with congressmen. And so we now have a communion between the Congress and the Australian Parliament over concerns about Julian Assange, and in the United States, the First Amendment, and in Australia, of course, we call it free speech. The parliamentary group, with about 60 Assange supporters, wrote a letter. I don't know how many sign on from memory, but they wrote a letter to President Biden and Merrick Garland asking that the charges be dropped. Equally, the American Congress wrote a letter, 16 Congress members from both sides of the aisle signed that letter requesting that President Biden drop the charges, and a copy went to Merrick Garland. Now there's another letter in process, which is a motion put by both sides of the aisle of the American Congress, asking that the charges be dropped. So sort of the High Commissioner late last year, the High Commissioner to the Court of St. James, the United Kingdom government from Australia, went and visited Julian in the jail. So that's the first significant official event.
Mm-hmm.
After that, the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese, became engaged, and the Australian ambassador to the United States is engaged. So we have the High Commissioner, the Prime Minister, the ambassador to the United States, all engaged in negotiations to bring an end to Julian's persecution. So a big year all up. There's two other letters that went out during the year. One, again, from the parliamentary delegation with the same sort of request. So, yeah, I would say that for us supporters in Australia and the United States, that is a pretty big year. And I wish to thank everybody and offer my congratulations to them. So, you want me to speak a bit more, David? Shall I say some more?
If you got, well, it depends what more you've got, brother. I mean, are we any closer to seeing Julian released? It's impossible to know, isn't it? I mean, everyone's making an effort. That seems
well. I mean, you can always
clear.
there's always a temptation to conflate the beginning and the end and say, but it's now 14 or 15 years that Julian's been incarcerated one way or the other. And significant events moving towards removing that incarceration. The first of those, I imagine, would be Nils Melzer's book, The Trial of Julian Assange, Nils Melzer's report to Nils Melzer's as the rapporteur on torture and unusual punishment after seeing Julian in jail, presented to the United Nations General Assembly, is a significant turning point. A copy of that report was tabled in the Australian Parliament. So we look at Christmas time, we look to review what we have created over the year and over those 14 years. We've only been actively involved since August 2019, travelling the world. So I would think that one wouldn't conflate the beginning and an end, but say that in the journey that we have achieved considerable success. You might remember that we are placing our shoulders all together against the United States, and it's a pretty large empire. And the United Kingdom is equally involved.
Just Mark there.
I get a phone call from Julian. It's a maximum of 10 minutes, and then it's guillotined. So you can imagine in 10 minutes you get halfway through a pretty good discussion, and then it zaps. But I think he's, under the circumstances and with what I have just gone over, his spirit's now buoyed and his strength. Get out of something.
So we got some background noise there coming through. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I might just must acknowledge we've got Hamburg for Assange with us, Misha. Bless you, Misha. Preparing some lanterns for the Lanterns for Assange on December 22nd. God bless you. It's a wonderful idea. Alison says that's epic. Alison adds, bravo, John, and everyone in the team. Such happiness and progress. Great. Well, is it time to pass to Adriana to give us some angle on the legal update on the legal situation?
Okay, thank you, Father. I'm not sure whether you can hear me okay. Let me know. Is the sound okay, Father?
It's okay, yeah. It is a
Oh,
bit of a problem, but it's okay.
okay. So I am a lawyer, but in terms of Julian Assange, I am really an activist, and so I am quite involved in the Sydney activities in support of Julian Assange. I am not a lawyer in Julian's team. I have an interest in, of course, the legal issues surrounding Julian's case, but I do not think that the law will resolve this problem. I think this is a political issue, and I think the solution must come from our representatives together with the family of Julian Assange, and it requires a lot of goodwill. In terms of the law, as John has done, I'd like to do a little summary, perhaps of the year and a half, commencing, if we can, around, let me see, I think it's August, 2 years ago. I have an aid memoir in front of me, and I just find that, Father, and I'll let you know. You also have my notes on this. So I would say that, or perhaps 10th of December 2021, just very briefly, that is when the decision not to extradite Julian was overturned because of diplomatic assurances that the US gave to the UK. Now, that's about page 10 of that document, Father. And what I'd like to say about that is that at the moment, as a result of very recent decisions of the Supreme Court in the UK, a decision dated the 15th of November 2023, the issue of assurances is still up for review. This is a decision called R on the application of AAA Syria and others. And what it says basically, the Supreme Court was looking at the repatriation of Rwandan refugees to Rwanda. And the UK and Rwanda had entered into some sort of an agreement which included assurances. And the Supreme Court reviewed those assurances under which the UK wanted to send refugees back to Rwanda. And the court says that the European and domestic case law is very clear on this issue, and the court now cannot simply accept assurances from a government as it did in the case of Assange. It must, in fact, consider how the receiving state operates in practice. It is important, in my view, in the case of Assange, because the court now needs to look about the treatment of individuals who will be sent to the country, and they have to carry out a fact-sensitive evaluation of how the assurances will operate. Let's remember that in the case of Assange, the US simply said, don't worry about Julian's mental health. He will have the best of treatment in the US. He will not be submitted to special administrative measures. We will ensure that that doesn't happen. And the judge, hearing those assurances, said, we just have to accept what the government of the US says. And we must accept it, and therefore they overturn the order not to extradite. Julian, with this decision of November 2023, comes into the court, and I think it needs to be explored deeply. That's one big change in the law, and we need to see how it plays. The UK is trying to get out of the European Court, blocking its jurisdiction so that the European Court of Human Rights would not be able to intervene in matters of that type. The other important development in the law is that on the 16th of November, recently as well, 2023, Judge Coyle of the Southern District Court of New York he's hearing the Kunstler case against the CIA, Pompeo, and the U.S.A. Global. And instead of very promptly and quickly dismiss the case by four individuals, four Americans, two of them lawyers of Assange in the U.S., and the other two journalists involved with the Assange case in the U.S., instead of simply dismissing it as the government wanted, this judge has decided to give an opportunity to the four complainants to prove why is it that the U.S. could surveil and spy on them and on Assange. This occasion has not simply accepted that the U.S. has this extraterritorial right to surveil anyone they want simply on the allegation that they might be involved in something untoward, but rather that there's some protection for individuals, in this case Americans, and in their case it was in relation to the Fourth Amendment. And so in this case again we will have a decision in the new year, and I think it might have some impact on the Assange case. This is me speaking as a lawyer, but of course I still believe, as I said, that the solution is a political solution, not a legal one. The last matter is, of course, the U.S.A. Global proceedings in Spain. And the U.S.A. Global proceedings in Spain at the moment, the situation is that the Audiencia Nacional accepted the complaint by Julian in 2019, and since then, Audiencia Nacional has been trying to collect evidence from those who Julian says breached his privacy and his legal privilege. Some of those people are, for example, Pompeo. So there's a subpoena, a summons on Pompeo to give evidence. Julian has already given evidence before the court, and the court has also requested the United States House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence to provide evidence of any surveillance or spying on Julian. So these three large cases, I feel, that are coming together now, and they picked a different, they paint a different picture for Julian. Now, I don't know whether at this stage those matters could really be brought to the attention of the court in the UK, since he has already lodged his last appeal in the UK, and we are waiting for a hearing. So he has a very competent group of lawyers. I am sure they are absolutely looking at these developments and just gathering what to do. But of course, even if Julian were to lose that last appeal, he still has an opportunity to go to the European Court of Human Rights. Now, the issue is time, of course. If he loses the appeal, will he be put on a plane and sent to the UK immediately? Will he have enough time to present a case before the European Court of Human Rights? Will by that time the UK has opted out of the European Court of Human Rights? These are all issues that we need to watch and carefully and see what happens in the next few months.
Okay. Look, thank you for that, Adriana. I often wonder with the whole legal situation, it often seems a little farcical. I mean, the very fact that Julian's being charged for breaking a law in a country where he wasn't present at the time. I mean, it just, the idea that the US can try people for things, people who aren't their citizens committing crimes when they're not in their country, it just seems ridiculous. There's a question here from Kyle. It seems Julian's case has been proven guilty before innocent. As a lawyer, is the international legal system failing Julian? As I feel when I was younger, I was under the impression you're innocent until proven guilty in law. Is it reasonable for the legal system to do this to Julian? Any comment on that?
No, it is not reasonable, and there's a history of abuse of process in this matter. We've heard from Jennifer Robinson in the past, here in the National Press Club, a list of irregularities. Now, this matter really goes back to 2010 when the collateral murder video was released. Shortly after the video was released in April 2010, by August, there was already an arrest warrant issued for Julian. So we see that it's really 13 years of a persecution using the legal system together with the media to portray Julian as if he were guilty. Now, strictly speaking, this is only an extradition matter. And in extradition matters, you actually do not get a chance to prove your innocence. You simply have to comply with administrative rules that compares one country's system with the other and says, on the basis of the allegations made by the US, is there something similar in the UK as a law and therefore some sort of a charge, a commission of a crime? And if so, we rely on our bilateral agreements and we will send this person to the other country so that over there the person could defend the charges. So to us, it looks like Julian has been proven guilty, and I suppose before the eyes of many people, he did initially, but I think with more information that has come to light and with advocacy like this one, a lot more people, and 80% of Australians believe that definitely he's not guilty of any charges and that he in fact should be released because the facts that have been alleged against him constitute normal journalistic activities. So I apologize for the law. It is alas at times, but in extradition law, the majority of courts simply seal the papers and send the person overseas.
In terms of the law, we had this good comment from Alison a little earlier. A lot of progress being made in disarming the state's false narrative. Heartened here, see FBI's Charles McGonigal, FBI team kicked out of Iceland, indicted 4 years this week. So perhaps all legal systems aren't equal. Is our problem with the US legal system?
John has told us in the past that some of the people in the Department of Justice have nicknames. They call them the snatchers. So they go into different countries and they snatch people and they take them back to the US to prosecute them for many reasons. Once they are in the US, you lose sight of them. You know, they come under these special procedures. The correction system is completely separate from the Department of Justice as such, and therefore I think yes, definitely there is an issue with the US, but that doesn't mean that the UK is free from criticism or that Sweden is free from criticism. I think the three countries have played a big role in keeping Julian Assange in prison for or under arbitrary imprisonment and then a Burma for the last close to 5 years, definitely. And of course, Australia has a role as well. Australia has a role because Australia has taken many years to even just say, as it did last year, enough is enough. And that is not enough. It is not enough to simply say that. What we need is some sort of effective action from our government, as he has done in so many other cases, to lobby before the US for the release of Julian Assange.
Yeah. Look, thank you, Adriana. Perhaps it's time to pass on to... Sorry? Sorry, I thought someone said that there. Perhaps it's time to pass on to Con for an analysis on the political angle. Now, Con, I'm sorry, I haven't given proper introductions to John or Adriana because I know you both too well. Con and I have only just met. He's from PEN, which Con tells me is one of the oldest human rights organisations in the world, from Melbourne's Writers for Peace. I've heard Con before advocating for Julian, and he's a very man who speaks well, is well informed, and looking forward to hearing what you've got to say, brother. Let me bring you.
Yeah, thank you, Father Dave. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be here. especially with John and Adriana. I'm just going to pick up on where Adriana left off, and that is quoting our Prime Minister, who loves that simple phrase, enough is enough. And I'd just like to remind him and the viewers that really he's been saying this for well over a year now. And enough is sort of a statement of a quantity and discussing the time factor. So that time has passed when you can say enough is enough. If enough was enough when he first said it, it's way more than enough now.
Yeah.
And so it's not good enough just to keep saying that. I'd like to remind the Prime Minister, and perhaps the Prime Minister could remind the British of the words of their former Prime Minister, William Gladstone, who once said, "Justice delayed is justice denied." And that's from the Magna Carta, Clause 40, which reads, "To no one will we sell, to no one will we refuse or delay right or justice." Now, Julian's been in prison for 5 years, and then he was locked, away in the embassy. A total of about 11 years of being restrained and detained and imprisoned. It's far too long. It's ridiculous. He shouldn't even be in jail right now as we speak. He should not be in jail. If we consider how he was arrested, and I know I'm sort of jumping a little bit into the legal arguments, but really, politically, the government, so the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister and our Attorney General have all at different times repeated the words of Brandis when he was the High Commissioner, that, we believe that the British system of justice, the judicial system, and we believe that the American judicial systems, that they're fine, let them run their course of justice. But this is not a case where justice can be seen to be done. So this is a glaring example, is the amount of detention that Julian has faced without conviction. Now, the only conviction that Julian has is for a minor thing that he broke his, at the time when he was waiting and he went into the embassy and claimed political asylum. At that time, he was entitled to do that. So we have an extraordinary, breaking bail conviction, and the sentence normally is not a prison sentence and never an 11-month sentence. But even that sentence has finished, and he is continually kept in a maximum security prison. We have situations of the surveillance that was mentioned, and his lawyer, Jenny Robinson, has even been compensated because the British violated her rights in relation to Julian. He was denied access to a computer for 9 months. This is in Niels Meltzer's book. And then given a computer with the keys glued down. He was confined to a glass cage during his own case where he didn't have free access to his lawyers. I've heard John describe how he had to get down on his knees to speak through a small gap. And Australia has left him without really any representation. So politically, it's a shambles. It's our government, to me, is complicit in negligence as far as Julian goes. So we want to see action from our Prime Minister pick up the phone and make a strong statement. Now, Prime Minister seems to be able to get the things done that he wants to get done. If you take the AUKUS agreement, for example, to find 368 billion in the current climate for a few submarines, it's scandalous. David, I'm not sure. There's a background noise. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So,
keep going, brother.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, when he needs to, if they need to, they can find a way of getting something done. And when they don't want to do something, they find excuses. It's a political case. Many people have commented that it's a political case. It needs to be solved politically. We do not believe in the British and the American judicial systems. Somebody needs to say that clearly. Every judicial system has failures. Have a look here in Australia. We've had people, imprisoned. Have a look at the refugee situation. Detained for years and years, and the High Court declares it illegal. Let's get real. Judicial systems have failings. So virtually every human rights organization around the world, every legal organization, press association, the amount of people and organizations of experts who have commented in this case that justice is not being served. The statements are quite clear, and the Prime Minister needs to listen and do something about it. We do not want excuses. Now, I know he's in a difficult situation at the moment because we have a situation in America where both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump, they've got their own legal problems, and they seem to be afraid to act. Mr. Biden, we won't go into what his problems are, but when he was in power with Obama previously, they made quite clear statements about Julian. What was said was it's a politically motivated prosecution because these are the words of Stella Assange. Sorry. It's a politically motivated prosecution because depending on who sits in the White House, Julian gets prosecuted or he doesn't. Under Obama, there was a decision by the Department of Justice to not prosecute Julian for the Manning leaks. And that was announced by the spokesperson, Matthew Miller, at the time. And they said, because he's a publisher, he's not a hacker, he's a publisher, and we can't go after him for the reasons of the First Amendment. So this is entirely a political case. Everyone knows it. It's the emperor wearing no clothing when they say that we'll believe in the judicial processes. So.
I mean, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, so
it's pretty clear that it's an entire stitch-up, and the only way to unravel this is by the activism that we all display, and that organised activism into fine points. So, so I can give you an example. We started out in 2019 with two people in Parliament. One was Andrew Wilkie, who's an independent in Tassie, and the other was Peter Wish-Wilson. Peter Whish-Wilson has been a supporter since 2011, you know. And we worked from there, doing tours of the east coast of Australia and gathering up into points of force and points of politics and points of society, social enterprise, if you like, or civic enterprise, I prefer to call it. And as a consequence of that, now Julian's matter is significant in government.
Mm-hmm.
When the Prime Minister says in Parliament that he sees no purpose in continuing this prosecution, it's first place a message to the Americans and to the United States ambassador. The second place, it's a message to the Department of Foreign Affairs, asking or instructing, if you like, the Department of Foreign Affairs diplomats to begin to find a way out of this problem and stop this prosecution. And thirdly, it's a message to us that I'm trying to do something. Now, we begin to examine the extent of the personal stature, the political stature of a Prime Minister of Australia. We examine that relative to the prosecution of Julian Assange and the stature of Australia within its alliance within the United States. So that is our point of pressure. We say that this alliance with the United States doesn't work proper.
Mm-hmm.
It fails, and it fails to the extent that they prosecute an Australian citizen for nothing, keep him banged up for 15 years. This is the 15-year con. That's 7.5 years in the
I think
embassy,
part of,
18 months in the house detention, and now about 5 years in the jail. I mean, there's been, applications for bail from the jail, but Julian is held incommunicados. Another insult. He's not allowed to say anything. He's incommunicado in a maximum security prison. So we got to speak for him, all of us. And the unity of us has produced the circumstances that I spoke of when we first started. And that's pretty bloody good. And I just got to congratulate everybody that the Prime Minister is engaged to the extent of his personal stature and the alliance. The stature of a Prime Minister of Australia within the alliance. The second one is that the High Commissioner went and visited Julian in the embassy. This is important. The third one, Gabrielle and I have seen the the Australian ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, 3 times in Washington total for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
The delegation has gone over and caused waves, and now we have a communion between the Australian Parliament and the Congress. This is important. That's the Congress of the United States and the Australian Parliament are in communication, in communion about the matter of Julian Assange.
Mm-hmm.
Get with it. This is really a big achievement of our people. The third is that we have about 60 members of the Assange parliamentary group in the Australian Parliament. We still haven't achieved the level of the Greek Parliament, which has 90 or had 90 in their Assange group. Every major figure in the South America, every single one of them Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Colombia. This is no lightweight thing. All of them have made statements, public statements, a number of times about Julian Assange's matter. That's 600 million people they represent. Mexico itself has trade with the United States equal to that of China. 35 million Mexicans live in the southern United States. So when AMLO, President Obrador, makes a statement, it comes with immense political weight. And that's what is solving the problem. That ordinary people gathering together and supporting those voices like Gabrielle Mine and Con and Adriana and Father Dave and so on. And in a unity, insisting. Now, there's another good point that I can raise. What has happened is that a group of constituents in an electorate get together, say 4 or 5 of them, and ask for a meeting with their local member. This works really well, and they bring the concern about citizen Assange to the member, and he takes it into Parliament, and the Parliament again puts a request, or actually a demand, that the executive act on this. So you see, the executive is acting. So we just congratulate ourselves and know the tools that we have to free Julian. And as a consequence, we have a model to apply to other matters of injustice or social need.
John, I don't think you mentioned that last Wednesday that Congress, there was a bill tabled in Congress to drop the charges bill.
No, I did. I did mention it. Yeah. In the first, I did mention that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, 6 Republicans and 2 Democrats.
That emerged after the delegation went there. After that after a communion between those two great parliaments, then things emerge. Political power begins to be applied, and so consequently the lawyers think of ways whereby the matter can be solved without embarrassing the administration of law. In my view, the law in the United Kingdom has fundamentally embarrassed itself. I mean, imagine if you were writing a contract in the city of London, and you feared that it may go into dispute and have to be adjudicated in the English courts. Forget about it. They'd sell you down the river for a little bit of political pressure from the United States or wherever.
John,
some of the comments coming online from the people who are watching us here. We had Mark saying any country that devised Guantanamo and the black program of abduction says no conscience about the prisoner Julian. If they can get him back, the world's police, they are sometimes called. He also said, we got that other one from him here too. He left the UK, says Mark, partly because of the criminality of the British political system. He doesn't mention a legal system. Not sure the U.S.A. because of Guantanamo and Julian, etc. for over 10 years. Therefore, I've not seen my family. God bless you. We've got Tony asking, does First Amendment apply to aliens? And the answer, I think, is no. I think that was one of the whole points, wasn't it, these people were making, was that they could try Julian here because he's not American. Even though not being American, he shouldn't be tried for breaking American law when he's not in America, but we don't point out that.
It's a contradiction. On the one hand, you apply charges for espionage as if you were in America, in the US, and Julian hasn't been, and but apply extraterritoriality to the entire world, and on the other hand, you prevent the individual from gaining access to for example, the First Amendment. So on the one hand, you say, we'll grab you, we'll take you to the US, but we will give you no tools to defend yourself.
That's another reason why that whole argument about our belief in the US judicial system doesn't stand. But I wanted to ask John, the Brazilian president speaking in the United Nations, I thought was amazing. I believe you met with him beforehand. Is that correct?
Yeah, a couple of times, 3 times. Yeah. He's a pretty impressive dude.
Yeah.
Actually, he's for South America, he's vital. He's moved. Well, I don't want to say single-handedly because like some countries, the Foreign Affairs Department of the Brazil is very skilled. Back some years ago, Brazil with Turkey negotiated a settlement with Iran over the nuclear problem that Iran had with the United States. And it was only cruelled by the United Kingdom, France, out of envy, I think. And so that's really to keep in mind that this Lula is an Obrador. I was speaking to Obrador with Julian, with Gabriel, sorry, in his office. We spent an hour with him, and he took a bit of a shine to Gabriel, as the older man to the young, ardent, open-faced young man. And he said, we've given 12 million educational scholarships in Mexico. There's solving of problems they want and need education. They need the STEM education, but the Congress or their parliament, as you want, it wouldn't pass the requisite laws. So he just simply said, well, we're going to give everybody a scholarship and get them to school. Very, very interesting man.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the Free Assange groups in those countries are huge. They've got movie nights frequently. They have a weekly rally in the main parts of the cities in Argentina, Mexico, and Brazil, and in other smaller countries too. And so they have cultural events that are quite significant, all for Assange. And so I think they have a great impact, and they encourage other activists around the world. I think that's also an important issue that we as activists have to get a little bit of strength from each other and just continue to be on the streets with the petitions, have a presence in a consistent manner, because I think consistency is really what gains you support. We are there to answer questions. If we can educate ourselves, that's great. Otherwise, if we can just be there and say, look, I don't have the answer for you right now, but I will send you the answer. I will send you the link. I will be there and you'll be informed. And that's very important.
The Minister for Culture in Mexico, the lucky lady's married to an Australian. Michael, lovely man.
Now, just bring in here some of the comments again from those who are with us. Phil making the point that Julian's done more to unite the country, just for anybody else, which is making a very good point. Mark says, John, you gave us hope when it can sometimes feel hopeless. Bless you, and all fighting for Julian. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, John. Thank you, John, says Magda. And here from Flores, Marco, not a matter of dealing with the governments, the industries that manufacture weapons that are threatened and exposed, yes, and then we've got the governments as their mouthpiece, of course. Mm-hmm. And John Quirk is with us. Here we go. Better to be Cheng Li in China. She at least was released. But of course, we in the West believe in democracy. Yeah.
A bit of irony there.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that, John. Look, John, I do worry. I mean, I pray every day for Julian. I do worry about his mental health. As you know, as my friendship with Mordechai Vanunu started in 1985, I think it was, and I communicated with him during his term in prison. He spent 11 and a half years in solitary, and I actually published a little book of letters we wrote to each other, and you can see him deteriorating over that time. The experience of isolation destroyed him. Uh, he, that's my prayer always, every day for Julian, is that he'll be able to maintain his strength and spiritual uh, energy and integrity. Is he able to do that? I mean, it's a terrible situation, this level of isolation.
Well, he's in. So the prisoners, he was in what they call a hell wing, which is the health wing, and it's a isolation. It's pods surrounding a central service area, and he was in isolation there, and that wasn't very good. So the prisoners put together a petition on the governor and said,
Yes,
move
God
him
bless
into
him.
association. That failed. So they did another petition, and that failed. And they did a third petition, and that succeeded. So Julian is in association. What that actually means, he still spends, like 22 hours a day in his cell. But Niels Melzer's evaluation of the effect of psychological torture with two doctors that visited Julian in 2019 in the prison is accurate. Okay.
Yeah.
That's as far as I want to go into exploring the damage that's done to Julian Assange by being banged up and mucked around, what the lawyers call failure of due process, false charges. And for another example is that Julian has the right to claim asylum. You don't get it in the Wheaties packet. You have to go through a process to be given asylum. He was given asylum, a signatory and one of the authors of the conventions of asylum was the United Kingdom. But when it's to their convenience, they said, "Oh, we don't care about the conventions of asylum." To add insult to injury, in 1973. The conventions were composed in 1958. In 1973, under the Whitlam government, those conventions were taken by Australia to the United Nations General Assembly and voted with only 16 abstentions. Everybody was in. At that time, it's well worth remembering this stuff. In Chile, there were 10,000 people in asylum in missions. Not just one, Julian, 10,000. So you get an idea of the vital importance of nations supporting the conventions of asylum. When things go wrong, people have got to have somewhere to run to. It was a fundamental error of the United Kingdom to disobey the conventions of asylum and begin a process of breaking down relationships between nations and between people based on agreed laws. It's a bloody great big scandal. And part of our work is to bring to people the understanding that Julian is emblematic of a collapse into barbarity. Really important. And that's what all of us, have done and are doing. I'm not, going to be falsely optimistic. I'm not an American. I'm an Oz, We really don't do false optimism. And we don't do a sort of loose what I call loose hope. Oh, I hope things will go all right. What we do is we give it a crack. We have a go, and we are succeeding.
Just on that issue, John, I do have the quote from the working group on arbitrary detention. And what they said was that Assange's embassy asylum was his only option to avoid extradition to the US and the related risk of political persecution and inhumane conditions of detention. Like any other human being, Assange could not reasonably be expected to give up his safety and expose himself to the risk of serious human rights violations. It's very clear. The United Nations has said it. The working group on arbitrary detention said it. The UK should have respected it.
Yeah, if I could add to that, that decision of Ecuador to give asylum, to extend, that's a better word, to extend asylum and make Julian an asylee, was reviewed by the Organization of American States. There's quite a lot of them, 32. All of them, with the exception of the United States and Canada,
Of course.
voted that Ecuador had done the right thing.
Yeah.
The weights, the weights of everybody, how can I express this? The manifestation of the support for Julian is attending to a global problem which faces us which we face in many directions. In particular, nauseating one or horrifying one presently is the foul business in Gaza. So insistence that we revert to that. Actually, an Australian, Herbert Vere Everett, is considered one of the mother of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is Eleanor Roosevelt, and the father is the Australian Herbert Vere Everett. And I reckon that it's part of establishing our sovereignty as a nation that we reverence those men and women that have done extraordinary things. John Pilger, Wilfred Burchett, Philip Knightley, Julian Assange, Herbert Vere Everett, Gough Whitlam, Nugget Coombs. And when we do understand that reverencing those men and women gives a depth to our culture, we grasp our culture to us. And the downstream from that, which is equally vital, is that in a multipolar world, your stature as a nation, your sovereignty as a nation allows its diplomats to negotiate on the nation's behalf more successfully and with standing in relationship to other nations. What do they think of us when we sort of roll over to the persecution of Julian Assange, who everybody knows? I go to India, I go to the Middle East, all of the European nations, the UK, South America, all of the nations in South America. I tour through the United States and Canada. Everybody is aware that this is a stitch-up. What stature do we have if we allow this stitch-up to continue? Well, I'd say bugger all. I can keep on talking until the cows come home, but I think somebody else ought to have a go.
I think that Australians would like to see, sorry, Father, I think that Australians would like to see not just the enough is enough and the knowledge that our Prime Minister is engaged, but some sort of public statement that says but when is he coming home? When is he going to be released? And that step, I think, will be very significant. I know it will take a lot of work and a lot of negotiations, but a lot of us are waiting for that.
I agree with you. If I could just add to your statement just a little bit, he doesn't have to say anything at all if he brings Julian home. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to offend the United States by saying they're on the nose, or the English judiciary by wondering publicly what they're about. All he has to do is bring Julian home. He'll go up 5 points in the polls. I think he needs a bit of a boost at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying, I like the man, but, he's got to sort of come forth, and we'll give him a boost in the polls if he does.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I love that point, John.
As you know, my feeling is that surely his persecution, the value of his persecution, has come to an end from the political point of view. I would have thought that if the goal is to crucify Julian publicly and to make an example of him, to let people know what happens to those who oppose the empire, their point has surely been made. And
I can agree with you, but what is rational about this blasted thing?
Yeah.
Where can you find rationality in it? All you can find is vindictive spite and malice.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, expecting, I don't expect generally rationality from those that embarked upon this persecution. I just expect them to understand that it's not going to do them any further benefit. It'll only do them harm.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is, though, in my experience, no, actually, in the understanding that's been given to me by extraordinary officers of state like AMLO and the others, that will get a response. If it's going to do them harm, I think you could say, well, what David just said is the same as what Prime Minister Albanese says: enough's enough. Where you're going with this, not doing anything with this. I don't think that cuts the ice with them, really. Mm-hmm. I think that Prime Minister Albanese privately saying, look, my people don't want this. It's not doing the alliance any good. All you got to do is fix it up. We can make an arrangement to save you your face if you've got any left after what you've done in Gaza and Ukraine. We'll give you a hand with that. But bring this lad home, and the alliance will benefit from it. Just wake up to yourself. It's going nowhere, like most of the other policy figures that extend outside the United States.
Yeah. And I don't think it's doing any benefits to the UK leaders or leaders-to-be either. There's still more freedom of information applications being put forward by journalists all over the world, putting pressure on Keir Starmer, who pretends to be the next leader in the UK, and showing his involvement in this persecution of Assange. I think it will be better that the matter is resolved, even for his own political career. But there you are. It's taken them so long to come to that conclusion.
Yes. Looking at the UK, one Great Britain, what happened? Where did the Great go? Somebody sort of had it for breakfast with their Wheaties or something like that. It's just such a gruesome scandal. And the statue of Sunak is minuscule. You know, he doesn't. You see them lining up together for that photo op in Tokyo a couple of months ago, 5 months ago, and they're all, you know, they all lack stature. How can
rogues gallery, John?
sorry?
A rogues gallery.
Yeah. So I mean, how can those men or leaders, you know, there's lots of ladies there too. How can they expect to institute policy when they have the stature of a mouse? You know, the squeaking, oh, this is no good, or that's no good, or we've got to stand up to Russia. I mean, for God's sake, the entire United Kingdom army wouldn't fill Wembley Station. Wembley, not station, Wembley. Yeah, it wouldn't fill. They're so broke that Australia's giving them $3 billion in the AUKUS package to fix up their shipyard so they can build and fix up their submarines. The other day, one of their submarines, its depth gauge broke. When the depth gauge on a submarine breaks, you've got
That's
sort
not
of,
good. And look, we're going to have to wind up in a moment. We said we go for an hour, and we've gone over that. I want to acknowledge some of the other things here. Mark Flores says, strategically, through Lisa Julian is a political one. It won't achieve the intention of the human rights movement. I don't know if that's...
No, I can't see why not, really.
I mean, it's you've got to start somewhere. You can't start at the end. Is Julian a religious man? The person who did most for Julian when he was first put in jail in the hell wing in isolation 24 hours a day for a couple of weeks, the person who helped most was a Catholic priest from Poland.
God bless him.
And so, you know, Julian knows the word and the feeling gratitude.
I remember Morty Vanunu's statement to me was, prison does not make a man more religious. Karen says the government very quick to claim credit for the release of Chegg Lee. Yes.
Absolutely.
And Kylie says, I hope Julian's mental health doesn't decline. That's my hope and our hope and my prayer every day. It's hard. And it must be terribly hard for him to maintain his energy. And we just hope that the love and the passion we have for him here on the outside somehow filters through, and that he knows he's got brothers and sisters around the world supporting him, praying for him, waiting for him to come home. And what a party we will have when that happens.
Yes. Somehow I feel that is a mutual feeling between Julian and the supporters, because I have been reading some of the letters that Julian has sent to various organizations in the last few months. He sent one to the German group. He sent another one to some other country. They're brief letters, brief messages, but they're full of hope and gratitude. And I think that, again, strengthens the work that we do. I think that we've achieved a lot so far. I don't care if there's no end in terms of the extradition. Enough is enough, as our Prime Minister has said, and I just would like Julian to be released so that we can hear more from him about so many matters. I'm sure he's got so many opinions to share.
Power negates rationality. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I agree, Kylie. You're on the money there.
What is India's stance on the Julian Assange? They're set to become a massive trading partner moving forward. Anyone able to respond to that?
I have no idea.
No idea.
No, he gets in the times of India. Julian used to get a lot of space and support. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good sign. Well, we're saying things are changing, Victoria. A lot of us believe things are changing. Very much for freedom of speech. The current Australian government supporting it, so pushing out. Yeah, well, that is true. I mean, this is all part of what Julian predicted, of course, many years ago. They were living in the last free generation. So much, I think, of what we've seen played out over the last few years is a fulfillment of Julian's prophecies, if you like. There's an amen from Kylie. I'm not sure she was amening, but amen. Our faith, our love, and continued support goes to Julian, to his family and friends in Victoria. Thank you. Yeah, indeed it does. Keep fighting, everyone. Massive respect to all. I think that was a smile, wasn't it, Alison? All right, look, we'll give. John, do you want to give any closing words, or did anybody have anything on their heart they really wanted to say before we close up?
No, just look. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Keep up the good work. If you can get a group of you together and go and see your local member, it works. And to those that mentioned the misinformation and disinformation bill, the model that we all have put together can be turned to that, turned towards solving that problem. I think that's the next one. Gabrielle and a few of us have set up the Information Rights Project, which after Julian is freed, we'll be on to those other matters to ensure. I mean, I don't know what they think they're doing. An informed public is all good ideas, all genius ascends from the people. It doesn't come down from the sky like rain. The Prime Minister, he grew up in a housing commission house. It ascends upwards. So keeping us ignorant will mean that the quality of policy, the quality of discussion, the quality of capacity to analyze and cause us to respond to the world and respond to our families' needs and respond to our own personal circumstances will decline. I mean, it's so easy to understand. You can look at every civilization. It reaches its high point upon the general understanding and knowledge that is imbued within the people. Easy peasy, sit around. All you've got to do, all we are charged to do, is have good conversations with each other over Chrissy, sort things out where we're going to go, and speak to each other on a foundation of knowledge. If you haven't got the knowledge at the time, get your search engine out and look it up. Good luck.
Well, John, John, you and I have both met with Anthony too on more than one occasion, and I'm always conscious that Anthony has the poster of Gough Whitlam up in his office. Well, he did in Marrickville, Gough being the only Australian Prime Minister to ever stand up to the US. So we just need to pray, I think, that the spirit of Gough Whitlam will indeed, if not the spirit of Jesus, the spirit of Gough Whitlam will do. To inspire our Prime Minister to greater courage.
If I could just say some last words, I would say to everyone who is interested on the legal issues in this matter, just to follow through that R and AAA Syria case, the Kunzler case, and also the UC Global case, because I think all of them are coming now for final determination in the new year.
Okay.
Well, bless you. Thank you, Adriana. Bless you. Thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight. I'm going to close off with, as we began, with our friend John Quirple, who's probably still with us. Now, where's that video of him gone? Here it is. Collateral Murder, the song.
Oh,
Where are
okay. Bye, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Father. Thank you, John. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
you guys?
And the man in uniform blandly saying, as sad as it is, it's a fact of war, collateral damage, sweet child playing, sweet child laying, crying, dying, victim of madness and chance, now gone. Morning was quiet, there was naught in the air to tell of the afternoon despair, when the silence was cracked by a thunderous roar, a shrapnel fire of phosphoric rain, sudden all around filled with agonized screams of desperate searching by frantic half-beams, hope against hope, extinguished dreams, anger and rage mingled with vengeance demand. And the men in uniform blandly saying, always blandly saying, that sad as it is, it's a fact of war, just collateral damage, sweet child playing, sweet child laying, crying, dying, victim of madness and chance, now gone.